thing all strong writing has in common is that it uses evidence. Evidence is information that backs up a claim. For example, if my claim is, surfing is the best thing ever, some of my evidence might be, on the other hand, if my claim is that surfing is the worst thing ever, my evidence might be, basically, using evidence proves what you have to say and makes it more likely that someone will agree with you. Evidence can be a lot of different things. Observations, facts, quotes from other people.
But one day, the heart will be found by someone who would...
Or quotes from other texts.
There's no hand, no foot, no arm, no face.
Even poems and books use evidence. Take this excerpt from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone when Harry sees Voldemort for the first time.
"Look," he murmured, holding out his arm to Malfoy. Something bright white was gleaming on the ground. They inched closer. It was the unicorn, all right, and it was dead. Harry had never seen anything so beautiful and sad. Its long, slender legs were stuck out at odd angles where it had fallen, and its mane was spread pearly white on the dark leaves. Harry had taken one step toward it when a slithering sound made him freeze where he stood. A bush on the edge of the clearing quivered. Then, out of the shadows, a hooded figure came crawling across the ground like some stalking beast. Harry, Malfoy, and Fang stood transfixed. The cloaked figure reached the unicorn, lowered its head over the wound in the animal's side, and began to drink its blood.
There are a lot of clues in this piece of writing. For example, the description of me as beautiful makes it all the more terrifying that Voldemort is drinking my blood.
Now, where were we? Oh, yes, drinking its blood. Ah! Malfoy let out a terrible scream and bolted, so...
The phrase, Malfoy let out a terrible scream and bolted, lets the reader know that I'm a wimp.
Okay, now back to the story. The hooded figure raised its head and looked right at Harry.
The phrase, slithering sound, gives the reader a clue that I, Voldemort, am somehow like a snake.
Okay, enough interruptions. Back to the story. Unicorn blood was dribbling down its front. It got to its feet and came swiftly toward Harry. He couldn't move for fear.
Rowling's description that I couldn't move for fear gives the reader a clue that Voldemort is a bad dude. So, when you're reading and writing, think of yourself as a detective of language. Detectives look for evidence at the scene of a crime to prove who done it. Similarly, authors use evidence to prove their point. My dog is gone! My precious doggy Bongo is missing! Don't worry, ma'am. I'll get to the bottom of this. When it comes to citing evidence to back up your claim, there's definitely an art to choosing the best evidence to back up your claim.
Mr. Thief, did you dognap Bongo?
Absolutely not. I'm 30% sure I was at Costco. That's right, Costco during the time of the dog napping. That's some crappy evidence.
Mr. Thief, did you dognap Bongo?
Absolutely not! According to my weird cousin Jerry, I would never do such a thing. That's some crappy evidence.
Mr. Thief, did you dognap Bongo?
Absolutely not. In fact, I am allergic to dogs. I even have this prescription medication from my doctor.
That's some pretty good evidence.
After you've chosen the evidence you want to include in your paper, the next step is introducing that evidence into your writing. There are 4 main ways to do this. Option 1. You can use an introductory phrase naming the source followed by a comma. According to Shakespeare, in Shakespeare's words, in Shakespeare's view, this might be a good option if the source of your evidence is important. Think about the example earlier. According to my weird cousin Jerry, I would never do such a thing. Saying, according to my weird cousin Jerry, isn't as effective as saying, according to Professor Acona from Stanford University. Option 2, you can use a descriptive verb followed by a comma. Remember, verbs are action words. While it might be tempting to go with the author said, there are a lot of fun alternatives to the word said that can add style and sophistication to your writing. Think about it. When you're solving a case as a detective, how people say things matters. So, when you're introducing a quote, the verb you use is important. Mr. Thief would never do such a thing. Yes, Mr. Thief would never do such a thing. Here are some common options for how to introduce evidence in your writing. Smith states, Smith remarks, Smith writes, Smith notes, Smith comments, Smith observes, Smith concludes, Smith reports, Smith maintains, Smith adds. So, using an introductory phrase naming the source or a descriptive verb followed by a comma are 2 great ways to introduce evidence in your paper. However, if you want to take your writing to the next level, I have 2 more options for you. Option 3. You could use a full sentence followed by a colon. This is a great way to set the reader up for what you want them to get out of the evidence. Be sure that whatever words you put before the colon could stand on their own as a full sentence if you put a period after them. For example, Mrs. Frizzle's bedroom window had a clear view of the yard where the dog napping occurred. Colon, quote, dressed all in black, he walked right across the grass and put a bag over Bongo's head, end quote. It is clear that Mr. Thief is no stranger to the area. Colon, quote, every morning at 8 a.m., he jogged past Miss Frizzle's mailbox, end quote. Finally, option 4. This is the most difficult but most sophisticated way to introduce your evidence. You can blend your words and the quoted words of the author together smoothly. During our questioning, Bongo's loving, energetic, and face-licking personality became clear.
It seems that at approximately 10 a.m., the mailman witnessed Mr. Thief carrying a large, lumpy bag.
So, now that you know how to choose the best evidence to support your claim and how to introduce that evidence into your writing, the last step is citing that evidence. To cite something means to give it credit. Did you know that plagiarism comes from the Latin word for kidnap? So, if you use someone else's words without citing your evidence, you're kidnapping somebody else's ideas. Did you say dog nap? No, kidnap. When you really get down to it, citing evidence is easy. After you include the quote from the evidence in your paper, you put the author's last name inside a set of parentheses at the end. Think of this as when you're calling out to a friend from across a room. Hey! See? Your hands make the shape of a parentheses. The same goes for when you're calling out an author's name in your writing and giving them credit. Inside the parentheses, simply put the author's last name and the page number you found the evidence on, and that's it. If your source is from the internet and doesn't have any page numbers, simply put the author's last name in parentheses and leave it at that. Remember, when you cite evidence, you want to put the period outside the parentheses, not inside. Let's practice with some examples from the Harry Potter excerpt from earlier. All right, detectives in training, let's review. Step 1, choose the best evidence to support your claim. Step 2, introduce that evidence into your writing by using an introductory phrase, a descriptive verb, a full sentence followed by a colon, or melding your words and the author's words together. Step 3, cite that evidence by putting the author's last name and the page number in parentheses, and that's it. Easy as pie. Have you ever heard the phrase, "the pen is mightier than the sword"? Knowing how to choose, use, and cite evidence is key to winning any linguistic battle or solving any dog napping case.